Okay, so this week I want to introduce you to some changes, some really slight tweaks that I'm going to implement in terms of grading practices for second semester. So let me introduce you to this. On Friday, I went over this with students, and I felt as students were exiting, there's a little bit of anxiety, and so I want to make sure that I explain it to you. First thing, first semester, assignments were not given a point value for the most part. I wanted those to be seen as practice. They were not meant to be seen as fluff per se, but they were very important steps in the learning process. However, I found that I think a lot of students were thrown off by that approach. They had been coming from maybe a background, maybe their schooling had been accustomed to several assignments, maybe a daily assignment that was graded every time, given a point value. And so we're going to do a bit of a hybrid. So first thing, points of emphasis. Each unit, test, or project will be assessed on a 4-point proficiency scale. That does not mean that they are only worth 4 points per se, but just for simplicity's sake, it'll be measured on a 4-point scale. So 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 4 is really where we want to be by the end of a unit. Leading up to that then, individual assignments, will be typically about 3 to 5. Those will still have about 1 or 2 point values to them. And again, those will be adjusted on a 100-point scale, similar to the 4-point proficiency scale, which I'll show in a moment. That 1 or 2 points is simply to represent a very important step into getting into that, being ready for that unit assessment. And so kind of think of it this way: if your unit assessment for baseball is the game, you can't just go without practicing or you can't practice throwing a baseball, or you can't practice your hitting and expect great results in the game. And so those individual assignments are meant to provide practice. This is simply an example of a unit. That way we could do, this is something from the beginning of the year. So the standard is standard 6, understanding the effects of geographic factors on historical events. We had 3 assignments where we used them to essentially practice and be ready for the unit project, where they create an original society, or at least create the blueprint for an original society using the examples from prior civilizations. So how this looks then on Power School, or how it goes from what we do in class to being assessed and on to Power School, and what you're going to see. Standard students will be using this 0 to 4, or essentially a 4-point scale. 4 is where we want to be. And so if the student gets 4 out of 4, they've demonstrated proficiency. They've shown that they can do it, and they can do it in they can use that standard, or they can use that skill in multiple ways. That's 100%, that's still an A. Now, this is where students got a little bit concerned on Friday. It was hard for me to show because I didn't have a board and I didn't have a nice table set up like this. But a 3 out of 4 is still a really good sign. It means that we're moving in the right direction. It means that they're showing some evidence of piecing elements, synthesizing concepts and bringing them together, but they still have some room to grow, and they still have some progress to make. Now, a 3 out of 4 is a 75%, and in the traditional grading system, if I were to punch that into Power School, that would turn up as a 75%, which is a C. Now, ideally, I could do it that way. Unfortunately, the way that Power School is set up, I can't do exactly the way I want. So a 3 out of 4, for all intents and purposes, represents the equivalent of a B. Now, in order to do this the way that I would prefer, everything that we do in class, our unit assessment, not so much the assignments, but the unit test or assessment will be out of 100 points. And so in order to get the B equivalent, I have to punch in an 87 or an 87%. Same thing for 2 out of 4. 2 out of 4 is a 50% traditionally, which is a F. But 2 out of 4 would represent a C. And so in order to do that, I have to punch in 77%. I'll talk more next week about reassessment, retaking tests, redoing projects, making revisions. But for now, this is generally the setup that we'll go with. And then quickly, another piece that I'm really looking forward to is that we have that academic piece that I just talked about, where we're really trying to measure their growth academically, intellectually. But there's also that social element. And so as students are going through 6th grade social studies, every Friday, they're going to be doing a self-reflection on here. And so these are always things that we have control over, and including myself. We always have to try to think about where are we on this scale, and how did we do? And what do we need to do to improve going forward? So things like attitude, their work ethic. Does their work always reflect their best effort? And did they use their time wisely in class? Are they ready to go? Their relationships and communication ability with other people. Are they listening to other people? Are they truly listening for the purpose of being able to reply and either agree or disagree or challenge someone else's thoughts? And then lastly is contributions. So being able to do this in a respectful manner, being able to give feedback. And so this will be out of 8 points. Typically we want to be somewhere in here, 6 to 8. And then comments are simply to help explain to me some of what went on in there and with them this week. Kind of an important piece here is this will show up in Power School. However, it will not affect their academic grade. It's purely meant as a communication tool between you and I and the students. So if you have questions about any of this, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me, send me an email. I'd be happy to answer those questions. So coming up next week, I'd like to talk a little bit about that reassessment process and what students can do if maybe they're not satisfied with a particular level of proficiency.